Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. I really kind of struggled with the title of today's video. I had a couple of ideas. I was originally going to call it Pass the Duchy to the Left-Hand Side, which would have amused me, but maybe the reference would have been too obscure for most of you. The reason I toyed with the idea of a title in the first place is because of all the swamp Germans in this battle. Well, there aren't that many, but the hero of today's game is from the Netherlands, as is the captain of the Johan de Witt on the enemy team, which itself is a Dutch cruiser, so yeah, it made some sense at least. I also thought of maybe including this in the Game of Throws series, and while there is definitely a throw going on, it's not really an epic throw, so yeah, I dismissed that idea too. But then I took a closer look at the name of today's hero. Now, if my limited understanding of Dutch pronunciation is correct, that name would be pronounced Jelle NL. So Old Yeller it is, which again might be too obscure of a reference for most of you, but I'm out of ideas and Old Yeller will do. So Old Yeller here in the Japanese Tier 9 light cruiser, the Takahashi. Now, this is the first time I've actually featured a Takahashi, although we have seen Takahashis in previous videos, just not being sailed by the player. And the video I'm thinking of, I may have overstated just exactly how dangerous the Takahashi is. I mean, it's not a bad ship, but it's not great by anybody's standards, for a number of reasons. Oh, but before we get into that, can we just take a moment to appreciate how good the matchmaking is in this battle? And I'm not talking about the fact that it's a Tier 9 battle, and every ship in the battle is actually Tier 9. I mean, there are no aircraft carriers, and there are no submarines. There's just a nice healthy spread of battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. Which means that everybody involved might actually have the chance of having a good game without the fun police stepping in to ruin it all for everybody. Anyway, back to the Takahashi. Not nearly as dangerous a ship as I may have led you to believe in previous videos, although it's certainly not bad, but it definitely falls short of greatness for a number of reasons. First, those are really good torpedo firing angles, and it can launch 8 torpedoes from each side. That's a lot of torpedoes. Unfortunately, they're slow as hell, and they have a detection that makes them visible from low Earth orbit, so people really have to not be paying any attention, or be at point-blank range, where you don't want to be in a Takahashi, in order to catch them with torpedoes. And you don't want to be at point-blank range in the Takahashi because, well, in common with most other Japanese light cruisers, it has abysmally bad armour and a really big above-water citadel. I mean, this thing eats armour-piercing shells and dies very easily. So the basic idea in this thing appears to be dump your torpedoes into the water, and hey, if they hit anything, it's a bonus, but don't count on it. And kite around at long range, spamming high explosive at everything. And this is where you start to run into your real problems with the Takahashi, and it's mostly all because of the guns. I say spamming high explosive at everything, even though, I mean, the damage output is, it's not awful, but it's not great. And she doesn't actually have a very good chance of setting a fire on target. She will set fires on target, but it's more through volume of fire rather than a high fire starting chance. So the high explosive shells aren't great, but they're at least better than the armor piercing shells, which are utterly terrible. Okay, so we talked about high volume of fire. Oh wow, he's actually managed to hit something with the torpedo. Well, that was lucky. But yes, we were talking about high volume of fire, and as you can see, the Takahashi has a lot of gun turrets. It has 5 of them, and each turret has 3 guns. The good things about these turrets is that they do rotate very quickly. And almost all of them can rotate a full 360 degrees, I think with the sole exception of the one right at the front, which can't because the next turret behind it gets in the way. The problem with the turrets is that they're big. They occupy an awful lot of the weather deck real estate, so they get hit often, and the turret armour is just as bad as the armour everywhere else on the ship, so the turrets get knocked out and incapacitated a lot if you get hit. But that's not the biggest problem with the guns. The biggest problem with the guns is the reload. Now, the ship does have 15 6-inch guns, but the reload is 15 seconds. That's ridiculously bad. Let's have a look at other Tier 9 light cruisers with terrible armour and exposed citadels armed with a large number of 6-inch guns, like the Neptune. The Neptune doesn't have as many guns. It only has 12 of them, but they're more or less exactly the same caliber. And while the Takahashi fires once every 15 seconds, the Neptune fires every 4.8. So it's got 3 less guns, but those guns have 3 times the firepower. That doesn't seem fair. You're not wrong, Jingles. How about you compare the Takahashi to other Japanese ships with guns of this caliber? Okay, challenge accepted. We'll even go down a tier. The Megami. Japanese Tier 8 light cruiser with a reasonable torpedo armament, abysmally bad armour, and an exposed citadel, which technically can be a heavy cruiser, depending on the turrets that you fit, but most people go for the 150mm guns, exactly the same caliber as the guns that you have here on the Takahashi. And it has exactly the same number of them as well, 15 guns. And the reload on the Megami, which is a tier lower, is only 10 seconds. A full 5 seconds faster, a third faster than the reload of the same guns on the Takahashi a tier higher. Which means, if you stop to think about it, you could argue the case, and you probably wouldn't be wrong, that even though the Takahashi is the only Japanese Tier 9 light cruiser in the game, it is not the best Japanese Tier 9 light cruiser in the game. I would argue that that particular honour could probably be best claimed by the Megami, even though it's Tier 8, because if you were to take a Megami into a Tier 9 battle, and not the Takahashi, you could be expected to do better, because it definitely has better firepower, and in most other respects, the two ships are very, very similar. You notice what old Yellow's doing here, by the way, to avoid getting blitzed by the armour-piercing shells being fired by that Agir? Acceleration juking. He's working the throttle to make the Agir overshoot, although he is catching a fair number of high explosive shells from the Rune back there. Meanwhile, his incredibly slow and incredibly predictable torpedoes are about to, well, I'm not going to say claim another victim, but they've scored another hit. They've knocked out the Agir's engines. He turned into the island to avoid the torpedoes, took a torpedo anyway, lost his engine, and now he's beached and on fire. Oh, actually, no, he's not on fire. Those flames are coming from his funnels, indicating that his engine's been knocked out. Old Yeller continuing to work that throttle and troll the Agir into overshooting, who surely has to die soon. I mean, it would be nice, because the team, despite having 2 of the caps, are behind on points, because they've only managed to kill 2 enemies and they've lost 4 ships of their own, including 2 battleships and 2 destroyers. Okay, he's got the kill. That's helped. Well, it's helped a lot, because it's put the team ahead on points. And they do have 2 of the cap circles. So, if they can keep this up, they're going to win. If they can keep this up. Which is, of course, by no means guaranteed. It would be real nice if somebody could finish off that Rune as well. I mean, it's not going to be old Yeller. He's going to have to start taking pot shots at the Frederick the Great over here. Oh, they've just lost another ship. Their own gear has gone down. Taken out by the enemy Black, which puts the enemy team ahead on points. They do still have 2 of the caps, though, so they can make that points difference up. And then the Missouri finishes off the Black. This is nice. They're ahead again. Unfortunately, just as quickly, the Rune that nobody could finish off, certainly not old Yeller because he was out of shooting range, with less than 4,000 health remaining, secures the kill on the Missouri, putting the enemy team ahead once again. And unless somebody finishes that guy off, he's probably going to keep doing it. He's even starting to recover health. This is what happens when you let a low health ship with a repair party escape. Speaking of low health ships, the friendly Iowa is not looking very good. Oh, this is bad. I mean, they're still only 40 points behind, though, because they have 2 cap circles, and then they lose the Iowa. Okay. Well, the San Luis down to the south has finished off the Rune, so that's, it's not bad. Unfortunately, a cruiser isn't worth as many points as a battleship. So the enemy team are still ahead. Old Yellow's team do still have those 2 cap circles, though. Unfortunately, control of that central cap at Bravo with an enemy Groningen lurking around, and the rest of the enemy team who took Charlie heading in this direction, the control of that central cap is not looking good. If you have a look at the map, there's a little island just to the south of that cap circle where the Groningen was last spotted. And he's just popped up. And you know what he's doing? He's just waiting for the right moment. He's going to tuck in behind that island, because the only real thing preventing him from flipping that cap circle is old Yeller here, who needs to see him in order to shoot at him, and who right now has a Marco Polo shaped problem of his own, and the black over there, the friendly destroyer. But the black isn't going to want to get into that cap circle and counter the Groningen with that lot approaching from the northeast. That would be suicidal. So they're probably not going to be able to hold on to that central cap for much longer. In fact, and that has to be the Groningen, he will have parked behind that island and just stuck his butt over the cap circle border. He's now starting to flip it. And the Marco Polo is about to arrive in that cap circle as well, which can actually work against the enemy team. I'll explain why in a moment. For now, things are bad, despite the fact that the San Luis, who has been doing a pretty good job thus far of ensuring that low health enemy ships don't escape to be more of a problem later, he's finished off the Frederick the Great. The Marco Polo, however, watch what happens to the cap circle. Look at the progress counter at the top of the screen when these high explosive shells arrive on the Marco Polo. I mean, obviously the Marco Polo's capture progress is going to get reset, but what actually happens, for reasons understood only by wargaming, is that even though the Groningen hasn't been spotted and hasn't been hit, his capture progress also gets partially reset when any other friendly ships in the same cap circle get hit and have all of their capture progress reset. So, yeah. Don't know why, but that's just the way things work. Of course, you'd need to have a much, much better rate of fire than the Takahashi in order to completely reset that capture progress just by shooting at the spotted Marco Polo. So it didn't really matter. The enemy team now have 2 of the 3 cap circles. Here's the problem. While old Yeller's team are ahead, they're not going to stay ahead because the enemy team have 2 of the 3 caps, and they're not ahead by much. The solution to this, obviously, is to either sink more enemy ships or recapture one of those cap circles, preferably both. Here's the problem, the real big problem. Look at the disposition of the enemy team. In order for old Yeller's team to retake that central cap, they're going to have to basically kill every single enemy ship anyway. So, yeah. Now, initially, I thought, and here we see the other Dutchman in the battle, appropriately enough, in a Dutch cruiser, the Johan de Witt, a not particularly good ship. And here's where I thought we were potentially watching another episode of Game of Thrones, and it's mostly because of the Johan de Witt over there. Why are you attacking? Oh, and there's the Groningen as well. It's just all about the Dutch today, isn't it? Anyway. Because while the enemy team are technically not winning right now, they're behind on points. And they've just closed the gap significantly by the Marlborough taking out the Alsace. They do have 2 of the cap circles, and would be ahead on points very shortly anyway, by doing nothing. You absolutely, definitely, I mean, you can kind of understand maybe why the Johan de Witt was pushing forward into the entire enemy team, because he thought, we're behind on points, we need kills, but you don't need kills. It was nice that the Marlborough sank the Alsace, but you didn't need it. All you had to do was sit back and defend that cap circle, which is what the rest of the team seem to be doing. But it's only what they seem to be doing. It looks like the Marco Polo is taking the hint and just taking cover behind the island, but the position that he's in doesn't actually give him any cover from the island, because everybody has line of sight to him anyway. He needs to be backing up. Looks like the Iowa is trying to flank around. Well, old Yellow's got nothing better to use the torpedoes on, so dump them in the water, cross your fingers and hope for luck. The Marlborough is definitely pushing forward. What are you doing? Why? Somehow the Johan de Witt is still alive. Once again, the team failed to focus down the low-hull ship trying to commit suicide. Old Yeller gets a momentary break there by finishing off the Marco Polo, but then just as quickly the team lose their San Luis, and once again it's a cruiser for a battleship. That is not an even trade. It is in favour of the enemy team, who are still ahead on points. But those torpedoes, not those torpedoes, the ones aimed in the general direction of the Iowa. Remember, they're really, really slow, and you can see them from low Earth orbit. So in order for those things to actually hit the Iowa and sink him, the Iowa had to be sailing at the same course and speed for at least the last minute, when every single remaining ship on Old Yellow's team is a torpedo threat. Can we have a slow clap for the Iowa? The Marlborough continues to attack. What are you doing? What the hell? What are you look at the torpedoes, man. Look at the walls of skill heading for that Iowa. You're in a battleship against 2 destroyers and a cruiser, all of which have torpedoes. Why are you attacking? You're winning. What the hell is going on? He eats another torpedo. Let's at least try to get some fires set. This is 219,000 damage done, by the way. It's 3 against 3. The Groningen is still going to be a big threat, although not when he's spotted, because the rate of fire that that thing can spit out is quite frankly terrifying. The Johan de Witt appears to have taken the hint. He's like, screw this, we don't need the kills, we just need to stay alive. I mean, they're still behind on points, but not by much, and they still have 2 of the cap circles. Marlborough, what are you doing? I mean, it's too late for the Marlborough to change his mind now. His mistake was made about 2 minutes ago. All of this torpedo threat, you'll notice that he only ever changed his course and speed when it was already too late and he saw the torpedoes. Oh, and he's dead too. Which means the Groningen and the Johan de Witt, amazingly, the Johan de Witt is one of the survivors. It's all about the Dutchies today, isn't it? They can still win this, though. I mean, they're 100 points behind, but there's more than 3 minutes. That 1 cap advantage can actually put them ahead on points again in the time remaining in this match. And Old Yellow's realised this. He's there in chat. We need to kill or cap. Actually, I think you just need to kill. He's telling the Z44 to get back, and it seems counterintuitive because the cap circle needs to be flipped. Yeah, it's too late to flip the cap. There isn't time remaining. It isn't going to make enough difference to the points. You see the smoke screen around the corner of the island that the Z44 was heading for? Yep, Groningen. And the Groningen has hydro. So the Groningen is probably baiting a trap there, trying to get somebody to close in so he can finish them off and guarantee the win. To his credit, the Z44 was paying attention. He's backed off and he's just launching torpedoes into the smoke screen. The Johan de Witt's gotten spotted, realises he doesn't have anything to lose because he's spotted anyway, takes a couple of shots. The Groningen, oh, you sneaky little Dutch bastard. He left the smoke screen there as bait. That wasn't a bad plan, actually. The problem here now, of course, for Old Yeller is that he is getting focused down by both of these guys. And while the Johan de Witt isn't much of a threat, it's a pretty bad ship. With both of them focusing him, and while dodging the Johan de Witt's airstrikes, he needs to turn this 2 versus 1 fight into a 1 versus 1 fight as quick as he possibly can. And while I would personally rather have taken my chances with the Johan de Witt than the Groningen, he's at least now only having to fight one of them. And he has set some fires. Oh, unfortunately, once again, the Johan de Witt looks like he's going to get away with it. Although Old Yeller has managed to go unspotted, he's now able, since the Johan de Witt is still spotted, and taken fire from the black. Come on. You've got to get this guy. Well, actually, you don't have to get this guy. Well, you kind of do. You're ahead on points, but the enemy team do still have 2 of the caps. Oh, he's spotted and targeted by both of them again. Are those high explosive shells going to do it? No. The Johan de Witt is now just trying to get out of there and run down the clock. But he's gotten spotted again. And those shells are looking pretty good. He's got him. There's the Kraken Unleashed. They are now far enough ahead on points, with only a minute remaining, that they can win, even if they don't take that cap. The Groningen's problem now, of course, is that you can't stay undetected and spot targets, because smoke screens work both ways. So he's having to nose out of that smoke screen, which he just did, in order to reacquire targets, because he now must get a kill in order to win. There he is. Honestly, I mean, that Groningen did play a good game. But unless he can kill Old Yeller now, he's going to lose. And in order to kill him, he has to get spotted. And he's got 3 ships shooting at him. So realistically, he's got no chance. Shots out, kill number 6, game over. You see how much fun World of Warships can be when there are no carriers or submarines in play. And when the matchmaking makes everybody the same tier. Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? And what was going on with all of the Dutchmen in today's battle? I do like the Dutch, you know, and there's no logical reason for it. I mean, saying that you like a nation is just as illogical as saying that you don't like a nation. But I do like the Dutch. I mean, I've been to the Netherlands many, many times, and I have never met a Dutchman that I didn't like. I'm not saying I haven't met any arseholes in the Netherlands, I have. It's just that they've all been British. You know what they say? Because there's always an arsehole in every group. And if you don't know who the arsehole is, it's you. So maybe that was it. Maybe I was the arsehole every time I've been to the Netherlands. Because they are genuinely nice people. And plus, when I go to tank shows, they all bring me stroopwaffels. So let's hear it for the Netherlands. And let's hear it for Old Yeller. 3,000, almost, base experience in the second best Japanese Tier Light Cruiser in World of Warships, even though it's the only Japanese Tier 9 Light Cruiser in World of Warships. Pretty impressive. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.